This
And welcome
conference will
to
now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. I'll call this meeting to order. We have 4 commissioners present in our meeting tonight. We have Commissioner Wolk attending virtually. If you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to our township website for public access. Randy, if you would please review our public meeting rules.
Before we review the virtual public meeting rules, I do have some sad news to report tonight. Former township manager Howard Kutzler passed away this past weekend after a long, hard-fought battle with cancer. Howard served as our township manager here at South Whitehall Township from January 2015 through February 2017. During his tenure, Howard impacted every department in a very positive way and truly cared about his staff. He was a great leader, mentor, boss, and friend to many of us here at South Whitehall, and he will be greatly missed by the entire South Whitehall family. On behalf of the township staff and Board of Commissioners, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies and condolences to the Kutzler family. Please join me as we honor Howard with a moment of silence.
Thank you, Randy. Take a moment to please review
Sure.
our meeting rules.
Okay. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference in this meeting. We do have a commissioner participating virtually this evening, so it's very important to keep everybody's microphones on mute. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I'd like to announce that the Board of Commissioners did meet in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters. On to moving to agenda item 4 is courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone with us this evening who would like to comment on any non-agenda items? Sir, come up to the microphone, sir, and please give us your name and address. You turn the microphone on then. Thank you very much.
My name is Brian Toronto. I'm at 2115 Walbert Avenue. First, I'd like to thank Chief Dorney for our conversation last week and the prompt action that was taken. I did see them out there pulling people over Saturday, and I do appreciate that. The other reason I'm here is the sidewalk on Dollar General. Again, I called 331 to speak with Mr. Cope about when it would be done. Asked him to call me back. I was pawned off to someone else again. I don't appreciate that. It goes back to my last meeting with the incompetence. He can't field a phone call of the citizens. He told me it was rude to say that, but I don't see another word for it.
Brian, if you would.
What I would like to bring up is.
Brian, keep your comments, please, to the matter at hand and no personal attacks of our staff, please.
Not a personal attack, in my opinion. It's a reflection of the work performed.
Brian, no personal attacks, please.
So last time I was here, you guys kept citing the first class township code in regards to projects that were going to happen. I went home and studied that inside and out. Chapter 131 of the code, it allows you guys to do exactly what I said, which is go down there and remove the sidewalk or do whatever you feel is the necessary thing and back charge the property owner plus 10%. If they don't pay, you can put a lien on them. There's also a statute in there that allows you to eminent domain the land. Now, this has been going on for 2 years. I don't have any confidence in the board to get anything done at this point. I haven't seen anybody up there doing anything. It is genuinely scary to think that this project has been left unfinished and you guys are starting new projects left and right. As far as I'm concerned, I first class township code, and it could have been resolved literally within 60 days because it gives you 30 days, give them time to finish it, and then you can come in and take action. So I want to see progress on this sidewalk. I'm fed up with it. I'm working with a law firm out of Slatington, and I will be presenting South Whitehall Township with a notice to sue this week for failure to, uphold the township code that you guys have voted on and solemnly swear by. I am done with it. It is absolute BS. There's no accountability from what I can tell. And when I started researching things, I found articles from people that have promised, things in the township who sit on the board tonight and the things aren't done, such as the audits and stuff. We had somebody steal $850,000 from the township. And from what I can tell, the audits aren't being done again. So, that's another problem for another day, but this sidewalk thing is boiling to a head with everybody on that end of the street. It's getting to the point where, I'm ready to start recalling board members. And, you guys have ran on the principles that the township is going to be different, and it's not different for good. It's different for bad. So, I really would like to see action on this. And I don't want empty promises or more bureaucracy of, well, we got to litigate this, that, and the other. I can't even get the people in my township who are supposed to be in charge of this to answer the phone and talk to me, or even give me a call back. The most action I've seen on anything was from Chief Dorney when I complained about the speed of the people through the town. 24 hours, something about it. So if he can move at that speed, I find it difficult to believe that the people sitting here can't get me an answer on when I'm going to have a finished, safe sidewalk that my family can walk down and not have to worry about walking along Walbert Avenue. And the state statute allows you to eminent domain state highways too. And it's, I have the statute if you want to know exactly which one it is. Sorry, gotta look at my screenshots here. State statute 57301, the power to lay out grades, ordain, and establish grades. It grants you the power to purchase, gift, or eminent domain the land for anything you guys need. So at this point, with the PennDOT not cooperating, their attorneys seeming to not cooperate, nobody figuring anything out, I managed to come up with an answer using Google in about 3 hours this week, doing a little bit of research. So I find it hard to believe that you have a solicitor that couldn't come up with this, or anybody in the township in any department doesn't know these statutes exist. So, that's all I have to say. I would like answers. Brandy Cope has my phone number from the voicemail, and I'd appreciate if you would stop pawning these conversations off on other people, because you explicitly said to me last year, any issues with this, call you directly and you will answer any questions I have about it. And since then, you have pawned me off to everybody else in the township, and they don't deserve that. That's not fair. You should be held accountable for the things that are going on in your township. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else here who would like to address the board for courtesy of the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the approval of the March 16th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. They were sent to the board in advance. Does anyone have any questions or comments on those meeting minutes?
Commissioner Kelly, I do have a comment. I think they're very, very well done, so I move to approve them.
I would agree with you. I'll second that motion. All in favor of approving our March 16th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no ordinances tonight. Moving on to agenda item 7, we have a resolution amending resolution 2020-18, which granted conditional preliminary final approval to a major subdivision entitled KRE Springview Commercial 2, extending conditional approval a further 180 days. Dave Manhut, if you'd please present for the board this evening.
I had a minor technical issue that everything cut out, went to different cameras, so I'm a little flustered, but I think I got it resolved.
We can give you a minute.
So we have a resolution amending the KRE Springview Commercial 2 project. They're seeking a time extension. They were here in December, or it was January 15th, 2020, they approved an extension. And then I believe it was the December meeting, they extended it another 90 days. So that brings them up for another extension. I believe the applicant is requesting another appearance before the board to discuss one of the conditions of the approval. Once they have all their professionals in line and scheduled for that meeting, I believe they will be reaching out to us to get on the agenda for that. So this evening, I believe they're just requesting an extension. And with that, I believe a representative for the applicant is here to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Manhart. Joe Blackburn from Whistler Pearlstein, here on behalf of the applicant, KRE Springview 2, Commercial 2. I think the facts have been accurately summarized. We're here seeking 180 days extension in order to provide us the opportunity to come back at your May 4th meeting and update some of the new commissioners as to what has exactly been transpiring over the past, at this point, I believe 2 years since the original underlying conditional preliminary final approval was granted. So I can answer any additional questions, but I think that's the ask and it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I actually don't have a problem with the request for the extension, but my question is this: which condition are you referring to that you'd like to have more time to?
The condition that we have spent the last 2 years working with both the Public Safety Commission as well as PennDOT is condition number 8, I believe, in your packet. I think there's a summary of those conditions which simply require that the applicant comply with the recommendations of the Public Safety Commission. Those recommendations included a prohibition, some turning movement prohibitions, which PennDOT was not in agreement with. And so we have a dueling recommendation, one from the state agency, which governs and regulates the state highways, and one from the Public Safety Commission. And they are at odds. And we need to, I think it would be a fair and accurate summary to say that, that is the limited item that we would like to present the commissioners with what we've been doing, what those conversations have been. We've been back to the Public Safety Commission a number of times. We've had extensive conversations with PennDOT, and just kind of update the commissioners as to what those have all yielded.
I anticipated that response. So if you're prepared to answer my next question, that's fine. If not, I understand because you're asking for an extension. Mm-hmm. But I would like to ask anyway, what is your path forward? What is KRE's path forward on this condition? What are you looking at?
The path forward would be a removal of the condition. PennDOT is not in support of the condition which the Public Safety Commission is insisting upon. Our approval is conditioned upon compliance with the Public Safety Commission. I think the ask at the May meeting would be an amendment to the approval so as to remove that condition, albeit with the supporting evidence and findings and recommendations of PennDOT.
So you'd like to approach what is now a new board and update us with your argument, let's say.
Correct, yes.
Okay, great.
And all of that has transpired over the past 2 years since that original approval in January of 2020. So there's a fair bit of, additional information, dialogue, studies that we feel is appropriate to update this board on before asking you to make a revision of that condition, which was in the 2020 resolution.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I won't be here for the May 4th meeting, so, but I am actually kind of familiar with the topic and previous presentations, so
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Walk.
Any other questions from the board?
This is Commissioner Walk. Can you hear me?
Dave, is there anything from Commissioner Wilk?
Yes. Can you
Mike,
hear
are you
me?
trying to speak? We're not hearing you.
Oh, Jesus. I'm not.
Did you call in again?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Nothing, Mike.
Okay. I'll call in.
Mike, it was working when you called in, so if you just log off the computer and call in and speak through the phone,
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
that should be able to do it.
Carry on.
Or you could type
Carry-
something in the chat. No, he's motioning to move it forward, but if you could just say that in the chat so that I can relay that information.
Dave, I would just note that technically we have a quorum without
Yes.
Commissioner Walk, but for his true participation, it has to be by voice.
While we're waiting, I just had a question. There were some of the other conditions that have not been met by Carrie to date were the comments of our township engineer, our community development department, and also water and sewer approvals. You've had 3 prior extensions granted. What is the progress that's been made by Carrie on specifically the township engineer, community development?
I think it's fair to say that the revised check set that would ultimately be submitted would satisfy all the other conditions that are enumerated in the original resolution. We have things like development agreements. We're obviously not going to be executing development agreements at this time. Dedication of right-of-way, obviously that's a condition we recognize wouldn't be appropriate to do now. So I think and with respect to the addressing of those comments, we're confident that we're able to do so. And I think part of that presentation on May, or whenever that date may be, would be a demonstration of that. But that would typically be as a part of a record plan check set immediately prior to recording.
Thank you.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Yeah, we'll have to move forward without Commissioner Wilk's comments, unfortunately. If there are no more questions from the board, is there any questions from anyone in the public on this matter?
No longer valid for this session. To get the
Seeing
new
and
phone
hearing
number,
none, we need a motion to move forward with a resolution amending Resolution 2020-18, which granted conditional preliminary final approval to a major subdivision plan entitled KRE Springview Commercial 2, extending conditional approval for further 180 days. Do I hear a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and second on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much. We'll
Thank
see you in
you.
May.
Appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item resolution B, we have a resolution granting final approval to a major plan entitled Ridge Farm Phase 1A. Dave, if you would help present to the board.
Thank you for calling Go-To Meeting. This phone number is no longer valid for this session.
So this is an application for Ridge Farm Phase 1A. They're looking for final approval. Phase 1A is the medical office building at the corner of Walbert and Cedar Crest. Associated driveways, roadways internal, as well as improvements to Walbert Avenue. The plan was recommended for approval at the March 29th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, subject to 35 conditions. To date, they've met one of those conditions. Greg Adams is here if we would like to read through those conditions. The conditions are in place to protect the township should anything happen with the developer and or the development not moving forward, so that we have the protections in place so that we can finish work if need be. We're protected with open space if need be. So there's a list of 34 conditions. All of those conditions must be satisfied prior to plan recording. No permits will be issued prior to plan recording. So those conditions are what has to be done before they can move forward. So with that, we can have Greg read through, or we can hand it over to the applicant to answer questions.
I think it would be important to read the conditions
Okay.
for the good of the board and the public.
Before Dave begins, if I could just ask a question. Has the applicant signed the acceptance of
Yes.
conditions form?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Zader.
Thank you, Greg.
No, sorry.
Bear with me. All right. The 34 conditions are: 1, that the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to the township and the solicitors, be executed, that sufficient security in a form acceptable to the township be posted. Such security shall be available for draws presentations no further than 60 miles from the township's office, and evidence of necessary insurance coverage be provided prior to the plan being recorded. 2, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of the township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Talarita contained in his review letter dated March 24th, 2022. 3, that the applicant addresses to the satisfaction of the township geotechnical consultant the comments of Mr. Chris Taylor as contained in his review dated March 4th, 2022. 4, that the applicant addresses to the satisfaction of Township TND consultant the comments of Mr. Thomas Committa as contained in his review dated March 9th, 2022. 5, that the applicant addresses to the satisfaction of the Community Development Department the comments of Mr. Greg Adams as contained in his review dated March 24, 2022. 6, that the applicant addresses to the satisfaction of the zoning officer the comments of Ms. Laura Harrier as contained in her review dated March 25, 2022. 7, that the applicant complies with the January 10th, 2022 recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Board. 8, that the applicant addresses all issues and obtains all approvals deemed necessary by the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners insofar as matters pertaining to the township's water and sewer service are concerned. 9, that the applicant obtains a letter from PADEP approving the sewage facilities planning module or an exemption thereto. 10, that the applicant obtains highway occupancy permit or permits from PennDOT for the road and utility work within the right-of-way of Walbert Avenue. 11, that the applicant obtains HOPs from PennDOT for the road and utility work within the right-of-way of Cedar Crest Boulevard. 12, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way for Walbert Avenue to achieve an ultimate right-of-way of an arterial road. The dedication of road right-of-way shall occur prior to the plan being recorded. The dedication shall be by deed of dedication in a form acceptable to township solicitor and shall be provided to the township with an opinion of record title prepared by the applicant's counsel that indicates the right-of-way is free and clear of liens and encumbrances that would adversely affect the township's use of such right-of-way. Completed roads would be accepted upon fulfillment by the applicant of duties and responsibilities set forth in the agreement pursuant to section 31231 of SALDO. 13, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way for Cedar Crest Boulevard to achieve the ultimate right-of-way of an arterial road under the same conditions as condition 12. 14, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way along a frontage of Huckleberry Road to achieve the ultimate right-of-way of Collector Road east of Cedar Crest Boulevard and to achieve an ultimate right-of-way of Arterial Road west of Cedar Crest Boulevard under the same conditions as condition 12. 15, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way along the frontage of Guth Road to achieve an ultimate right-of-way of a local road under the conditions of condition 12. 16, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way along the frontage of Folkt Avenue to achieve an ultimate right-of-way of a local road, also under the same conditions as condition 12. 17, that the applicant shall dedicate additional right-of-way along the frontage of Buckman Street to achieve an ultimate right-of-way for a local road, also under the same conditions as condition 12. 18, that the applicant shall dedicate to the township a utility easement of sufficient size in an area acceptable to township for accessing the sanitary sewer lines to be dedicated by the township. The dedication shall occur prior to the plan being recorded. The dedication shall be of a deeded easement in a form acceptable to the township solicitor and an opinion and record title prepared by the applicant's counsel, indicating that the easement is free and clear of liens and encumbrances that would affect the township's use of said property. The applicant shall furnish to the township solicitor a description of the easement that has been approved by the township engineer, a copy of the current deed for the property showing the current ownership, and cites the deed book volume and reference page reference. 19, that the applicant shall dedicate to the township a utility easement of sufficient size in an area acceptable to the township for accessing the water lines to be dedicated to the township, also under the same conditions as condition 18. 20, that the applicant shall dedicate a blanket easement for municipal stormwater inspection and maintenance to the township, also under the same conditions as condition 18. 21, that the bike pedestrian paths along Cedar Crest Boulevard and Walbert Avenue located on private property be placed within a bike/pedestrian easement that ensures public access, places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or homeowners association, and guarantees the township the right, but not the obligation, to maintain the path at the expense of the property owner or HOA. 22, that the street trees along Walbert Avenue and Cedar Crest Boulevard located on private property be placed within the same bike pedestrian easement that places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or homeowners association, and guarantees the township the right, but not obligation, to maintain the trees at the expense of the property owner or HOA. Additionally, the ordinance and/or plan approval obligation for maintaining and replacing the street trees shall also apply to the trees being placed within the bike/pedestrian easement. 23, that the applicant shall agree upon satisfactory completion of all storm sewer, water, and sanitary sewer facilities shown in the plan as intended for dedication to the township, to execute formal bills of sale for said facilities, so as to convey said facilities to the township for nominal consideration. 24, that the applicant addresses to the satisfaction of the Township Community Development Department Director, Township Engineer, and Township Solicitor that all rights deemed necessary by them for road access, road connections, and rights of way indicated on the plans in the area of the Buckman Street and Dawes Street have been obtained by the developer, and that the opinions of record title, where deemed advisable by the Township Solicitor or Engineer, be provided. 25, that a declaration of covenants and easement for the maintenance of stormwater management facilities prepared by the Township Solicitor be executed for the maintenance of the on-site stormwater management facilities. 26, if deemed to be necessary, that the applicant shall ensure that the township's right to enforce the speed limit on all private roads to be maintained by the HOA be guaranteed to the satisfaction of the township. 27, that the applicant shall secure all public improvements and execute all required agreements prior to the recording of the plan. The applicant shall restrict by deed restriction or similar instrument approved by the Township Solicitor's Office the portion of the Ridge Farm tract proposed to be developed under the TND residential cluster overlay beyond that which is constructed under the final plan phase 1A to remain open space in perpetuity. Said open space is to be maintained by the HOA until such time that the final plan for the next phase or sub-phase is recorded. This final plan, phase 1A, shall not be permitted to be recorded if this plan will cause the portion of the Ridge Farm tract proposed to be developed under the TND residential cluster overlay as a whole to no longer comply with the TND residential cluster overlay regulations. 28, that this final plan, phase 1A, shall meet the active open space requirements of Saldo section 35031 F2CIA by a means acceptable to the township prior to the recording of the plan. 29, that prior to the issuance of a temporary or permanent certificate of occupancy for the proposed medical office building, the applicant shall complete to the satisfaction of PennDOT the traffic improvements required by the PennDOT approved HOP plan, which are associated with the medical office building being approved by Ridge Farm Final Plan Phase 1A, particularly including but not limited to the Office Center Road intersection signalization, or alternatively, substantially complete traffic improvements required by the PennDOT approved HOP plan as determined by Township staff to be needed to address the traffic generation of the medical office building. 30. As to any matters requiring solicitor review and approval of homeowners association documentation, or which Township staff or solicitor determined to be advisable for inclusion in such HOA documentation, the plan may be recorded upon solicitor review and approval of language addressing such issues without actual recording of the HOA documentation in the office of the Recorder of Deeds or the declaration of the planned community or declaration of condominium containing such language. However, such declaration shall be recorded to the satisfaction of the Township solicitor prior to a certificate of occupancy, temporary or permanent, being issued for the medical office building. 31, that the applicant reconciles all open invoices for Township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded. 32, that the applicant shall meet all conditions of the final plan approval, and the record plan will be recorded within 12 months of the conditional final plan approval, and that the applicant agrees that if such conditions are not met, the conditional final plan approval will be considered void, and the application for final plan approval will be considered void and withdrawn unless otherwise approved by the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. 33, if for any reason any condition or conditions of this resolution or portions thereof shall be held by a forum of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, illegal, void, or unenforceable in any respect or to any extent, 1, this resolution shall be automatically be deemed to be null and void in its entirety and shall be deemed to have been immediately and automatically repealed as if it had never been passed. 2, this resolution shall automatically be deemed to be a resolution denying the application due to the fact that the application does not comply with those sections of SALDO or any other applicable ordinances listed herein or in any review letters referred to herein, including any section related to waivers and deferrals. And 3, the applicant is waiving any right to proceed with such an action seeking a deemed approval of the plan based upon the automatic repeal of this resolution identified in this condition. The applicant acknowledges that each and every term and provision hereof is an essential material component of the Township's approval of this applicant's plan. 34, in the event that the Township becomes involved in litigation of any kind relating to the major subdivision other than a direct appeal by the applicant of the Township's approval of this resolution, such as an appeal of this resolution by an adjoining property owner or third party, or an attempt to collaterally challenge any conditions of this approval by means other than a timely appeal of this resolution, the applicant, on behalf of itself and its agents, representatives, successors, and assigns, hereby agrees to exonerate, indemnify, protect, defend, through legal counsel of Township's choice, and save harmless the Township and its boards, committees, and commissions, including the individual members thereof, their elected and appointed officials and their employees, contractors, other professional consultants, engineers, solicitors, managers, representatives, advisors, predecessors, successors, agents, independent contractors, insurers, and assigns, collectively the Township representatives, from any and all claims, lawsuits, proceedings, actions, disputes, causes and rights of action, expenses, losses, allegations, demands, charges, injuries, costs, including without limitation, attorney's fees, engineer's fees, and other costs and expenses incurred, including expert witness fees, damages, including without limitation, compensatory, consequential, or punitive damages, sanctions, and liability of every kind, character, and manner whatsoever in law or in equity, civil or criminal, administrative or judicial, contract, tort, including without limitation, negligence of any kind, or otherwise, quote unquote, claims pertaining to, relating to, resulting from, causing by, and arising out of the township's approval of any application as evidenced by this resolution and/or the township taking any actions contemplated by the conditions thereof. Any questions?
Greg, thank you very much. I know that was a lengthy list of conditions, but I felt it was important to have them read aloud into the record, certainly for all of us to hear and review, as well as the public. And I do want to commend the staff for pulling these together and for the comprehensive, I guess it's Greg motioning. Appreciate you.
Well, I did have some help with Joe.
With Attorney Zader as well.
Thank you.
And any others who involved, as Dave had mentioned earlier, for the protection of the township. I just did have one question, as I do sit on the planning commission, and we did have 35 conditions that we proceeded forward, and there's 34, and it looks like the one that was removed was the, if deemed necessary, that the applicant obtain a favorable review from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission.
Yes, that's correct. We have at least one review, actually two, and we've determined that they are sufficient for this Phase 1A final plan. So
not just a review, but approval of stormwater management.
Yes, correct.
And so they have 2 approvals already for the entire development.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this matter? Yep, couple, yep, go ahead.
I just, there's 35 conditions not met, 1 met. What are we approving? That they have to do the other 35 before they can go forward?
Okay, there we go. Jim Preston, I'm the attorney for the applicant. Good evening. No, what happens is typically, if you read these conditions, I just how to phrase this. They're sort of like constraints that the township is putting around the applicant to guarantee that the applicant stays on a very narrow path. They're not preconditions. In other words, you have to do all this. They're couched that way, but it's designed, as I understand it, to remove from the applicant any latitude, any movement away from the path that the township is requiring them to follow. So, for example, you heard there were quite a few conditions in here. 12. The applicant shall dedicate right-of-way for Walbert Avenue, and then it goes on. Number 13, the applicant shall dedicate right-of-way. 14, the applicant shall dedicate right-of-way for the frontage on Huckleberry Road. Those parts of the plan are not in play now. They're to happen somewhere in the future. But what the township has asked, and we agreed, is we'll give it to you now. So there's no bait and switch, there's no smoke and mirrors. You're getting everything up front. So because this is the first plan to go through, will now be recorded. This is where all the cookies, it's the jar with all the cookies in it. That's why it seems as big as it does.
Is there any comment from staff or Attorney Zader?
I would just add, you're approving the project to move forward based on these conditions. So those conditions have to be met before they can move forward with the project. So you're giving it approval based on those conditions.
And to put it in perspective, I would just add, and certainly I agree with everything that's been said so far, but even in the simplest of projects, a 2-lot subdivision, it will be an approval subject to conditions, because there are certain things that simply cannot happen or really should not happen at this stage. And so since Mr. Preston mentioned dedication as just one example, let's take that one. A developer is not going to want, and nor should a township expect, a developer to dedicate right-of-way to a township or a utility easement without knowing that the developer has an approval plan, because if there's no plan approval, it doesn't make sense to do that dedication. So it makes sense to tie the two together. The developer has the comfort level that there's an approval and can feel safe that dedication of that land is indeed appropriate now that there is an approval in hand.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. So basically, to move forward after Phase 1A, some of these conditions would have to be met at that point or at the conclusion of the entire project?
No, to get through just Phase 1A. We've been able to take a plan for phase 1A. Before we can do anything with phase 1A, we can't get a building permit until we record the plan.
Okay, I got
In
you.
order to record the plan, we have to do all this, and that's just phase 1A.
Right.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about. Thank you.
What was your question? Can they go on to the next phase? Is that what your question was?
The process will roll over again.
Currently.
We'll go right through the same process again, although many of these conditions will have been removed. The right-of-ways will have been granted, that type of thing.
David?
Yeah, if you could please refresh my memory. I'm looking at the pedestrian and bike path along Walbert. Will there be any type of signal for the bicyclists when they cross that right turn
David, can you
only
hear me?
going into the development? Will be, any kind of protective measures that can be had? I'm concerned about a cyclist, not so much a pedestrian because, a cyclist is much quicker, but that maybe they may be blind to whoever is in that right turn lane.
Understood.
Especially with the trees. I couldn't find the exact slide, but it looked like there were like lollipop trees planted on either side of the walkway. And I was just wondering if you do have an answer. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So you have
a very good question.
Visibility.
100%, yes. We have worked with the engineers
Find it.
for signage for watch vehicles. And also the other thing we did is, if you remember, it's been a while, those bike paths went straight across the intersection as if you could continue to bike across the intersection. Now we actually took them and turned them, as you can see, to have to force pedestrians or bicyclists to stop and take a left-hand turn, which in essence slows you down. So you actually have to look. So we're trying to make it perpendicular to the road, and there's signage at the crosswalk to hopefully have that pedestrian or bicyclist stop, look both ways before they cross the road.
Oops, sorry. Will there be any signage on for the driver in that right turn lane, or like a caution type sign?
There will be a painted crosswalk across the road for them to see that also. Unfortunately, you can't put a stop sign there because it's free flowing, but there will be crosswalks that are painted. And we work with PennDOT as much as we could to get what's allowable on the road. But yes, that's correct. There will be painted crosswalks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I need a motion to move forward with a resolution granting final approval to a major plan entitled Ridge Farm Phase 1A.
So moved.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution C, we have a resolution establishing the manner of compensation for Thomas Dinkelhocker Esquire, Zoning Hearing Board Solicitor for the Township of South Whitehall, and Dave Manhart.
Yeah, so this is a resolution to pull this up for the Zoning Hearing Board Solicitor for his fee schedule. So the Zoning Hearing Board appointed Thomas Dinkelhocker as their attorney, and then the Board of Commissioners will approve the fee schedule. So that's what's in front of you tonight.
Thank you, and I do recognize Attorney Dinkelhocker. Welcome to South Whitehall. Are there any questions from the board on this resolution?
I have a question, David. Do you know what was the compensation for the previous court hearing officer?
It was less. I don't know what I can tell and what I can't. Can I tell the prior rate, Joe? It was
Certainly subject to right to know.
Yeah, it was $150 an hour. Maria was with us for so many years. And I think she held that rate for quite some time.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Any from the public?
Commissioner Kelly, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment.
Of course.
So Attorney Dinkelhocker, first of all, congratulations. You have large shoes to fill, but I know you know that. Attorney Mullane was the best for South Whitehall, and I'm sure you will do just as well. But there will be a lot of expectations on you.
I'm not gonna wait till after you guys vote, obviously. But good evening, everybody. I just wanted to come in and just to say, I want to thank the zoning hearing board for the selection, and I'm honored to be here and to work with the township, and I'm looking forward to it. And believe me, I know I have big shoes to fill. Maria and I started it, or we didn't start. I started at Weaver Mosbach in 1987, and Maria was already there, so I knew Maria for a number of years, and then going forward, and we've been on the same side of the table sometimes and the opposite side, but she has always been first rate, and I know the township will miss her, but I'm hoping that I can step in and be an asset. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the resolution establishing the manner of compensation for Thomas Dinkelhocker Esquire, zoning hearing board solicitor for the Township of South Whitehall?
So moved.
So moved.
And I'll second that motion.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Congratulations. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution D. We have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, appointing Tricia Dickert as the Deputy Treasurer of the Township pursuant to Article 8A, Section 801A C of the First Class Township Code. And Randy, if you'd present, please.
Sure, absolutely. So the resolution in front of us here tonight is to appoint Tricia Dickert to the Deputy Treasurer role at the Township. This position essentially permits Tricia as Deputy Treasurer to step in and fulfill my duties as Township Treasurer if for some reason I'm unable to perform those duties. Regarding her bond for this position, this does require a $1 million bond amount, which has been confirmed that Tricia is capable of being bonded. That's been confirmed by our insurance agent. We're simply just waiting for her approval here tonight by the Board of Commissioners before the issuance of that bond occurs. There's no additional compensation for this role as Deputy Treasurer, and this is now a requirement of the updated First Class Township Code that the Treasurer appoints a Deputy Treasurer. So here we are, and Tricia's a great asset to the Township. I know the Board knows her well. I have every faith in the utmost respect for her and her ability to perform this role.
Thank you, Randy. And Tricia, her official title, she's in the Finance Department.
Scott, Assistant Finance.
Assistant Director of Finance.
Director.
Excellent, thank you.
Don't say manager.
And you answered my question, Randy. I was going to ask about her bond, so thank you for explaining that to us in your explanation. Are there any questions from the board on this resolution?
I have no question, but I just make a comment. She does sit in on our finance committee meetings with Mike and I, and she's been a tremendous asset. And she's a fairly new employee to South Whitehall Township, and I think she's already done great things as we'll see down the road on what she's been doing. So
well, thank you for sharing that. I hope, Scott, if you'd relate that to Tricia, we'd appreciate it. If there are no other questions from the board, any questions from the public? Seeing and hearing none, I need a motion to proceed with the resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, appointing Tricia Dickert as a Deputy Treasurer for the Township pursuant to Article 8A, Section 801AC of the First Class Township Code. A motion on the floor. Is there a second? A motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And we will move on to agenda item 8, which is motions. We have a motion to approve budgetary transfers as follows: from Public Works Contracted Services to Public Works Major Machinery and Equipment in the amount of $25,300, and for executive salaries and wages to executive professional services in the amount of $16,000. And Scott, if you would present to the board. Not.
So this is a motion for a budget transfer for two items. One of them is in the amount of $16,000, which will go from the executive salaries and wages to the executive professional services. This is for the work that our friend Paul has done for the township. And in the absence of a full-time township manager, we are requesting to transfer monies from the salaries expense line item, which would have ordinarily been used to the professional services. So this is just for that piece. And we thought it would be more efficient to put both budget transfers just in one. And so that's where we get to the second budget transfer. This is where we're asking to transfer monies from the contracted services line item in the public works budget in the general fund to a major machinery and equipment line item, which Herb will have a little bit more information regarding the mowing contract for the parks.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any questions from the board on this motion? Anything from the public? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to approve budgetary transfers from Public Works contracted services to Public Works major machinery and equipment in the amount of $25,300 and from executive salaries and wages to executive professional services in the amount of $16,000?
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor. I will second it. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion
No.
carries 4-0. Moving on to motion B, we have a motion requesting permission to proceed with the purchase of 2 John Deere mowers. Herb.
Good evening, Commissioners. South Whitehall Township Public Works Department is respectfully asking permission to purchase 2 John Deere zero-turn mowers for the upcoming grass season. The need for this purchase is because the subcontractor was not able to hold his pricing. The price for both zero-turn mowers are $25,243.50.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this motion?
I have a question. What was the amount of the contract?
The amount of the contract, I believe, is $83,000. And I did sit down long and hard and look into this. I do have it all laid out with the 3 routes for the 3 wing mowers and the 2 zero-turn crews. We're looking to wrap this up by Wednesday so we don't jeopardize any other maintenance in the park systems or fall back on any services to the community. So we will be able to keep up with that. We're not looking for extra staffing. With the summer help that's coming in, we will be able to cover this. And it's a huge savings to the township also moving forward because we're going to look to keep this in-house going forward also.
I'll
Thank
pick up
you.
on that, Herb. And that, from what I understand, that doesn't entail any overtime?
No, it does not.
Okay.
We have it figured out Monday to Wednesday to try to get this wrapped up. Thursday, we'll put the 3 wing mowers down at Cover Bridge Park, get that covered. The other guys that were cutting that are already done will get into the other maintenance of weeding and guide rail spraying, and we will be able to keep up with everything.
Thanks.
Herb, thank you. You answered my questions because my first 2 questions were, would Public Works be overextended? Do you have the manpower? And the second was, does it make sense since we're making this investment to keep it in-house?
Yes, and
you
I
answered.
did sit down with the Parks Department, just didn't take what I thought we could do. I have met with the supervisor and a couple of the people who cut grass, and we are all in agreement that we can make this happen.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I just had one question, Herb. When you stated that the subcontractor was not able to hold the pricing, were they trying to negotiate with the township or they just wanted
No,
not
he just
to
said
be
due
part
to
of
the
contract?
well, we couldn't negotiate with him because we were on a 1-year extension.
Okay,
So if anything, we would have had to go out to bid, but he said he could not hold his pricing due to gas prices.
and that was his prerogative because it was
Yes.
an extension. Very good, thank you. There's no other questions from the board. Are there any questions from the public? Seeing and hearing none, I need a motion to move forward with requesting permission to proceed with the purchase of 2 John Deere mowers.
So moved.
Motion on the floor. I'll make a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Herb.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Don't go away, Herb. We need you for the next motion. Motion C, a motion requesting permission to proceed with the purchase of supplies for new roofs, siding, and gutters for water stations.
All right, South Whitehall Township Public Works Department is respectfully requesting permission to purchase the supplies for the new roofs, siding, and gutters on the water stations. The roofs and siding and the gutters that will be replaced are Cornerstone Water Station will get a metal roof, new siding and gutters. Birch Station will get a metal roof, siding, and gutters. Dorney will get new metal roof and gutters. Eck Road will get a new shingled roof. 41st Street will get a new shingled roof and gutters. Public Works is respectfully requesting the motion to proceed with the purchase of supplies. This was budgeted in the 2022 budget for $100,000 for roofs and $5,000 for siding. Doing this work in-house instead of outsourcing this project will cost us $19,908.55. So the $100,000 is when we looked out last year about outsourcing the roofs. And to me, $100,000 was too much money for these roofs to be done when we are capable of doing them in-house. We do have people that do know how to do this. As soon as we get the materials, and we are thinking we'll be wrapped up by end of May, mid-June, depending when we get them in. So we are going to look to jump on this right away. It will not affect the other stuff also because the water guys are going to take care of these that know how to do that, and we can still move people to get stuff done. So putting that much money when we could save this much money only made sense to me to bring it in-house.
Thank you, Herb.
You're saving about $85,000?
Correct.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I would agree. And the other thought that came to my mind was I recall in our budget workshop when we were looking to cut a percentage of costs in departments that you had also done a similar adjustment to your budget with paving.
Correct.
That you went from contracting to bring it in-house and found a significant savings with Township. So I appreciate you working in that regard. Are there any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Seeing and hearing none, I need a motion to move forward with requesting permission to proceed with purchase of supplies for new roofs, siding, and gutters for the water stations. A motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Herb.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Moving on to motion D, we have a motion requesting permission to award bid for professional services regarding Wares Dam project. Randy.
Sure, thank you. So this is something I've been working with Paul Leonard on, our consultant, and with Michael Baker. We've been going back and forth with this a lot. We've been through a lot of iterations here with this project and this proposal, trying to fine tune it to make sure this is really a one-stop shop for us, for Michael Baker to oversee the entire construction process, from the start of our bid specs through our pre-construction meetings, our submittal reviews, responses to technical questions that come up on pen bid, requests for information forms, change orders, pay apps, everything you see here on this table. It's really broken down into 2 tasks. The first task are those things that I just mentioned, including the permit closeout, which is also a very important thing. And then the second task to this is on-site visitations and key milestone inspections of specific projects. So the idea of this professional service is to have a certified engineer on site, somebody who understands dam rehabilitations, somebody that's certified in that field and can also speak to the technical questions that may come up through this process with DEP as well as the contractor on site. So again, as Paul and I were walking through this, speaking with other engineering firms, we did determine that it was probably in our best interest to stick with the Michael Baker in this case, specifically for the reasons mentioned, dealing with DEP, the permits, and so on and so forth. So I do want to draw attention real quick. There was a small typo on here, which I did confirm with the contract or the engineering firm this morning. or this afternoon, I'm sorry. There is a small typo here under the budget where it is a not to exceed cost of $73,620. The actual cost for this professional service is $77,260. So that was a typo based off of an old proposal we've been working on. I did mention we've been through probably 3 or 4 iterations of this proposal trying to fine tune it. But we feel very confident that one, we have the right engineer for this project, and two, that we have a proposal here in front of us that is going to encompass the full amount of work that we're looking to have accomplished here. So we're respectfully requesting that we award this professional service to Michael Baker in the amount of a not to exceed cost of $77,260.
Thank you, Randy. I just had a question. I remember when Michael Baker made the presentation to us on the rehabilitation of the dam, one of the topics he discussed was the need to open the gate in the middle for maintenance once a year or twice a year. Is this something that we're going to have? I don't know if we need to coordinate with our staff that will be doing that maintenance work yearly, or is that something we contract out? I know that they had said the gate hadn't been functioning in years and it was rusted shut. And I would just like to see something in our plan to make sure we're doing the maintenance moving forward so we can keep this dam in good condition.
I agree. I think we could probably look at a maintenance plan down the road as well for the dam to make sure we're accomplishing those items that you mentioned here. This does include the installation of a new sluice gate here, as well as the gabion baskets that are starting to fall apart and into the creek. So I guess my recommendation there would be to, once the dam's under construction and we see exactly what's being done, to work with Public Works and Michael Baker to come up with a maintenance plan, routine maintenance plan of exactly when we should be, potentially lowering the water, what type of inspections we should require. But a lot of this is also controlled by DEP in terms of the inspections that are going to be required for us to follow, the signs that need to be in place, all of those things. So a lot of that's already kind of outlined, what those requirements would be. But certainly if we want to go above and beyond that to make sure it's in, the best working order we can look at an increased maintenance plan there to see if that's something, we can do.
And what do you suggest is the best way for the township to make sure we don't forget to do that? I know that we get involved in a plan and I don't want to lose sight of this. Could we add it to old business just as a note that this is going to be dealt with in the future? I don't know what else the board might suggest, but I think it's important.
Yeah,
with the investment we're making.
we've had Ware's Dam on old business for a while. I don't think we're proposing to take it off anytime
Well, I
soon.
meant the
but-
specific maintenance of the repaired dam.
Is that a Public Works, Herb? I don't know if you would be involved in your department.
No, it would be Public Works who would. We used to, before I got here, it was broke when I arrived, the sluice gates. They used to open them. George Inochko used to actually open them.
Right.
I think it was done at every inspection, or if there was a big rain event coming, you open them to help relieve the pressure behind the wall and stuff like that. So they used to open them, but when they did not function anymore, we could not open them
So
anymore.
basically, I would think we would put something within your department.
Yeah.
Your
Yep.
maintenance schedule at every
One,
July
yeah,
or
even
as
if
needed.
Yeah, whatever DEP recommends
Right.
we do, that's what we will put on. We'll actually give it to the MS4 guy probably, since he's doing the inspections and everything. We can just incorporate it in that function also.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board?
Just a comment, Commissioner Kelly, just to complement what was said, this is actually classified, I believe, by the DEP as a low hazard dam. So there are regulations that the township needs to follow, an inspection program which requires DEP to be there present during the inspection. So this is something, it's a real responsibility. So, and the way to make sure we don't have an issue is to exercise that slide gate on some frequency.
We currently inspect the dam quarterly right now in-house, and then Pitcock does the fourth quarter along with us already on the inspection. So there's probably going to be some new signage that needs to go in with the new dam, but we do have the proper signage for what is there now right now. So.
I was not aware that inspections were being done by Pitcock. Is that something that we could get reports to the board yearly when it is inspected?
Yeah, sure. I can turn them over to you. We turn it into DEP also. The report that Tony does do, that gets mailed into them, a copy of it. We have a copy on file in-house also. And Pickhock also has a copy of it. But if you want, I can give you the quarterly inspections, the yearly inspections. We get them, we do them all the time. So.
I would think yearly is adequate, but that's up to the board. Yearly? Yeah.
Yes, it's usually December, October, November, December inspection. So when we write our report to go to DEP, this is for the Arch Street Dam, but we can submit it to you as well as DEP. No problem.
And if you want, like you said, we can give you the Arch Street Dam also inspection. We do it quarterly. They do it at the end of the year with us in the fourth quarter. So we could send them both over at the same time to you.
That'd be great. I'd like to look at those. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to move forward with permission to award the bid for professional services regarding Ware's Dam project?
I'll make a motion.
All right, I'll second it. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion E, we have a motion requesting permission to proceed with resurfacing of basketball courts at the South Whitehall Chase and Jacoby Parks. And Mike Kukitz.
Yes.
Good
Hello,
evening.
good evening, commissioners. We are asking permission this evening to have South Whitehall Chase and Jacoby Park basketball courts repaired, color-coded, and lined. We are requesting that the Board of Commissioners award this to Pavement Maintenance Contractors Incorporated, a CoStar's approved contractor, in the amount of $24,470.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this motion? Mike, I just had a question. I went down and looked at the Chase Park. Do we know if that area gets a lot of use for the basketball court? And the reason my question is, I know we don't have any pickleball courts in the township, and it's an up and coming sport, and there's a lot of people who are interested in it. I didn't know if there was ever any consideration given to convert one of our basketball courts or tennis courts into a pickleball.
Sure. Yeah, we've had discussions about possibly double lining the tennis courts. I actually just spoke with someone today to come look at them, and I had somebody else look at them about a month ago, just kind of game planning for a year or two down the road. We haven't discussed that at Jacoby. They're not heavily used. They're not as heavily used as, say, Cover Bridge Park basketball courts, but they are used by the neighborhood there. My first thought with the pickleball court there would just be parking might become an issue or a nuisance to some of the neighbors. If there was the one court, it might get kind of busy over there in that neighborhood. So we were just looking to keep it a basketball court.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions from the board? Any from the public? Hearings and seeing none, I need a motion to move forward with the request for permission, to proceed with resurfacing of basketball courts at the South Whitehall Chase and Jacoby Parks. I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to motion F. We have a motion requesting permission to proceed with the purchase of playground equipment for South Whitehall Chase Park.
Yes.
Mike Kukitz.
So we reached out to 4 different CoStar's approved playground suppliers who provided us 6 different design options and had discussions at the Park and Recreation Board. They are recommending proceeding with purchasing playground equipment from PlayPower LT Farmington Incorporated for a total cost of $53,239. The cost includes shipping and installation of the following equipment, and I believe the full quote has been provided to you in your packet there as well.
Thank you. I did attend that Park and Rec meeting, and this particular bid from this company had certainly the most equipment, the most fun stuff. So it was an interesting bid. So thank you to the Parks and Rec department for sending this to us. Are there any questions from the board on this motion? Anything from the public? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to move forward with a request for permission to proceed with the purchase of playground equipment for South Whitehall Chase Park.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, correspondence and information items. I will briefly go through, we've got current vacancies on boards and commissions. We have one alternate vacancy on civil service. We have one vacancy on the Green Advisory Council. We have two vacancies on landscape and shade tree and one vacancy on the Park and Rec Board. The board did hold interviews for the applicants that we had received for the Planning Commission, Zoning Hearing Board, and Vacancy Board last week, and a decision will be forthcoming at a future meeting. And Randy, if you would review upcoming meetings.
Sure, we do have a few upcoming meetings. Next Monday, April 11th, we'll have our Parks and Rec Board meeting at 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 12th, we'll have our next comprehensive plan workshop. That's also at 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 13th at 1 p.m. will be our Civil Service Commission. We also have a Board of Commissioners workshop Wednesday, April 13th at 6 p.m. to discuss open space and preservation. We do have 3 guest speakers coming, one from Lehigh County, another from Bushkill Township, and one from Lower Mount Bethel. On Thursday, April 14th, we have a Crime Watch meeting at 6 p.m. Monday, April 18th, we'll have our Green Advisory Council meeting at 6 p.m. And on Tuesday, April 19th, South Whitehall Township PD Fraud Workshop will be at 6 p.m.
Very good.
I said fraud, not frog.
Did sound like fraud. Thank you. And one item of discussion, since we're talking about future meetings and vacancies on boards and commissions, one topic the board had not solidified a decision on was whether or not we would move forward as we're looking at vacancies to also consider whether we would interview the expired terms of members who are still serving. So I'd like to take this opportunity at this time to see what the pleasure of the board is. We've got several boards and committees and commissions who have multiple vacancies that are several years old. And it's, in my opinion, a good time to just interview all. And as we look to move forward with vacancy filling, it's a good opportunity to discuss with our current members as well. So I'm going to open the floor to any comments from the board, if that's something they'd like to move forward with.
Yeah, Commissioner Kelly, thank you.
Of course.
Also, I hope, I'm going to say this so we just as a placeholder, so we won't forget, we may want to update everyone on the township manager search and going
Yes,
forward.
Randy Cope will be doing that during the executive report in just a few minutes.
All right. I understand that there's been some discussion about interviewing. Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. From a process point of view, I absolutely support that we should be interviewing for expired terms as they occur, and as quickly as possible within a month or two of an expired term. We know it's going to expire. We have a lot of expired terms, Commissioner Kelly, as you had shown and talked about. But I'm going to express a little bit of concern about the expired terms on the Planning Commission. There are 3 expired terms. Some go back, one goes back to 6 years at this point, maybe 5 to 6 years. Two terms are certainly a couple years. I personally, although I support the process and I would like to see us follow through on the process and be diligent about that on expired terms on all the commissions and volunteer boards, my concern with interviewing the 3 individuals on the Planning Commission with expired terms is this. First, I should probably ask, is these interviews that may occur for the Planning Commission, are they get to know you type interview? This is a new board. We want to learn a little bit more about the views and direction of the Planning Commission members with expired terms, or is the board considering this 3 vacancies? So I'll pause and wait for the answer before I comment further.
Sure. I'll answer unless.
That's a good question, Brad. I hadn't thought of that way. I made a comment to Diane that I believe if a member of any board has been active, expired or not, but they show up, they've been, fairly active, that I don't see why we should interview them. However, it was also pointed out that, it's either an all or none. You interview everybody or you don't. I don't need to waste time or their time if they've done it. But on the other hand, I don't have that answer. I don't know if it's 3 vacancies or just to get them to know. I mean, obviously we would get to know them because if we don't, as a new board member, that would be 1.
Yeah.
But I would like to think of them as not as 3 vacancies.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Kennedy.
Because they are doing, they're there, they're showing up and they're doing, even though they're expired.
Yes.
They're still showing up for their meetings.
Well, to
Yeah,
that point.
I respect that. But
To that point, the resolution, when you are sworn in as a volunteer on any of the boards, it says your term is to whatever date or until the successor is appointed. So it's not really a vacancy. It's an expired term that continues. Not an expiration does not mean a vacancy. There's a distinction there.
Okay, so let me go a little bit further because I don't want to say what is the intention of these interviews, although bottom line, that is kind of what I'm asking. My concern with replacing 1 or more of the Planning Commission members, if that's the result of any interviews that may be conducted, my concern is that we're in the midst of a comp plan. And I would not want any one of the members of the Planning Commission to be removed and replaced with someone with no experience in the planning, certainly in the comp plan itself as it's being formed. So while I support the interviews happening, if it's possible outcome that anyone on the Planning Commission in this case may be replaced as a result of these interviews, I would at least ask that we wait until after the comp plan is finished. So we don't have a discontinuous board, some inexperienced members that are replacing experienced members. We don't throw in uncertainty onto the staff in terms of Planning Commission members and bringing them up to speed. And we also don't bring uncertainty to the stakeholders who have been involved in this process since the beginning. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
I think that's fair. I really do. But I, as a new member, certainly want to establish a relationship with the Planning Commission. I do want to interview them. I do want to hear their perspectives on things. I want to hear their experience. So I think those interviews do have a lot of value.
I think you both make excellent points. I would agree with both of your assessments, and I think it would equally be important to have interviews. As to your point, Brad, we do need to be consistent across all boards, and it's an opportunity for all volunteers to meet with the governing body every 4 years and speak to us or future boards about what their record was for the last 4 years, what do they see moving forward, just to keep things fresh as well. And one of the things that I would like to suggest, because we do have multiple vacancies that are, multiple expired terms that are several years old, and I'll open this for discussion, but I thought that it might be wise to ask the chair of each board to report to the Board of Commissioners, maybe at the first of the year, what terms do they expect terms expire that coming year, so the governing body is aware and can plan interviews moving forward and be aware. So that chair's duty would also include informing the board of the makeup of their.
Commissioner Kelly, I agree with that. In fact, it's written almost directly that way in the MPC. It's responsibility of the chair of these particular boards to give that information to the Board of Commissioners at the beginning of every year. Yeah.
I can speak from experience that on public safety, that's always been done. The chair of that has done it. I've been asked for 25 years, do I want to renew? Do I want to continue? And the BOC would approve me, and I would get some kind of a letter saying you've been appointed for another 4 years. So somebody was doing it right, but all the commissions and boards should do that. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
So Randy, I'll ask you then, we can chat later, I guess, about how best to inform each board's chair that we would want to report on at the first of the year of any terms that are expiring in that coming year. It's one of their duties.
Just so I'm understanding correctly, you're looking for a report from the board chair on expired terms or upcoming potential vacancies.
For that year. Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
So one last question. I don't mean to belabor this topic, but if we do want to move forward with interviewing the Planning Commission, do we want to do that soon? I know we had kicked around a date of April 16th at 6 p.m., which would be next Thursday to do that. Is the board agreeable to that date?
You said April 16th?
April 16th?
I would certainly like to participate. I know that I didn't answer, so let me check my calendar and get back to you if that's okay.
I'm sorry, April 14th. Thursday. Well, we can circle back with that.
At what time?
6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Commissioner Kelly, I have a question.
Of course.
Do the boards have any kind of protocol as to attendance? Because in the interview process and looking at boards and revisiting when people's terms have expired, I think it's important to take into account how active they've been and if they've been at meetings or just on the board and not there. And I'm not saying that this is the case, but are there any protocols like that right now that if you miss X amount of meetings, you risk losing your position or, just wondering.
That is built into certain board bylaws.
Certain ones.
Yep. I'm not sure about all of them, but I know for a fact it's built into some of them. Also, going back to, I believe the board was discussing April 18th for interviews. Is that correct? 14th. We may have some advertising requirements that we need to abide by. I believe it's got to be in, Tracy, a week before.
That would be tomorrow.
So we'll have to get that prepped.
We would have tomorrow
ASAP.
till noon. So if the board.
To answer Tracy's question, a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners, if that's what you're envisioning here, because all will participate in the interview process. It's going to be an open meeting of the public. That has 24-hour advertising requirement. Now, with that said, depending on whether you go to the Morning Call or the Parkland Press, they have their own lead times to get it in. So that's really the date you have to be concerned about. But that's a no later than time to advertise. You certainly can do it before that.
If you want to check on that, we can.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
If it's a special meeting, we have time. Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for that discussion. I appreciate it. Moving on to old business. First on the agenda is Ware's Dam. Randy, do you have any more
nothing
updates than what we've
further
already
to
discussed?
report on
Okay.
Ware's Dam.
Old business B's, comprehensive plan update.
So, so the comprehensive plan update. We are preparing for next Tuesday's comprehensive plan workshop meeting. The agenda or topics that we will cover at that meeting include overarching goals and objectives that we worked on at the first meeting, as well as the resource protection goals and objectives that we had to pivot and pull the Planning Commission prior to public comment. So we have two kind of processes. We'll go through all of that and kind of decide which way we want to move forward. And one thing that we did discover with the resource protection is it was a lot of implementable actions. So we're working on building the implementable pieces to the plan. So we'll start presenting implementable actions and a table, and we can start talking about timeframes and things like that. That's really what's on slate for next Tuesday's meeting. Again, we should have packets out and posted to the website by Friday.
Thank you, Dave. I just had one question. I know at the meeting that was scheduled a month ago that we needed to postpone.
And we had technical difficulties.
There was a representative from Michael Baker at that meeting.
Yes.
Will they be present moving forward?
Yes. So we have Hannah Clark with Michael Baker will be helping us with these workshop meetings. And she's also helping kind of to synthesize the goals and objectives as we go through. And, it's always great to have another set of ears, especially a professional planner that's been through the process multiple times. So, we have a collaborative working relationship and we bounce ideas off each other. So we really value their opinion, Hannah's experience. We're happy to have her involved in this part of the process.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Old business item C is Jordan Creek Greenway Phase 1 from River Road to Cedar Crest Boulevard.
Sure, this was asked by the board to keep under old business. We discussed at our last meeting some concerns the board had with regards to safety of the existing plan for Phase 1 of the Greenway along River Road. There's a small section, maybe 150 feet or so, where there would be a proposed shared road. So what we did is we actually had a very productive meeting. I believe that was Tuesday, yesterday. Very productive meeting. We had our engineers from Michael Baker there who were the designers on this project. We had Brian Height was in attendance. Thank you, Brian. We also had a representative from LTAP there and Pannoni to offer some of his recommendations and expertise as we went through the discussion on some topics and some ideas on how we can make this the safest shared road possible. We're also looking at alternate locations or options as well to stay off the road. So we've tasked our engineers from Michael Baker to take a look at those options, associate some cost with each option, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that back to the board here shortly.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate all who were in attendance to that meeting. It was, I agree, very productive to be on scene and review. Are there any questions or comments from the board? From the public? Brian?
The plan is to do a traffic count there starting
Could you
Sunday.
give your name and address, please?
Brian Height, 1273 Eck Road. The plan is to do a traffic count there starting Sunday. That's the first day it's really going to be sunny, and let us sit there for about a month. So that was discussed during that meeting. So
thanks, Brian.
We'll get speed and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on then to department reports. For those that have attended meetings in the past, this previously had been done monthly. The board had decided early this year that we would make a slight change and have our department heads report out to us quarterly. So we appreciate them all being here tonight, and we look forward to getting an update from you all. So
Sure.
Start with the executive department, Randy.
Sure, I'd be happy to start. So a quick update for our township manager recruitment. Today was actually the deadline for applicants to apply for this position. So later this week, I will be reviewing those applications with the Board of Commissioners as well as our recruitment manager, and we'll be conducting interviews over the next few weeks. We are revisiting the Milhouse Project. For those of you that may not know what the Milhouse is, the Milhouse is the small gray house at the corner of River Road and Ware Mill Road, just on the other side of the covered bridge and across the street from the entrance to the Jordan Creek Greenway. So we're exploring some opportunities down there for renovations. The roof was just replaced on that property as well, so it's starting to come together. The township has decided to resurrect our Township Staff Safety Committee. This is something that we're bringing back to life here to review building evacuations plans. We obviously have a new building here, so we want to make sure our staff is well aware of the evacuation plans. We're also making sure we're keeping up to date with our AED training throughout the building here and reviewing some simple safety in the workplace items. This is also being done to save money on the township's insurance and to ensure safe working conditions for our staff. Again, I did mention the preservation workshop on April 13th. We've got 3 very qualified speakers coming to shed some light on programs at Lehigh County, the preservation program that Lehigh County offers and supports, as well as an individual from Bushkill Township and Lower Mount Bethel Township. Both of those townships have highly successful programs, and I think it's going to be outstanding for the board to hear, as well as staff, to listen, to kind of hear their success story, where they started from and where they're at today. Other than that, I think I'll keep it short and sweet tonight, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions from the board? Any from the public? Thank you. Moving forward, we have the Community Development Department next.
So, yeah, so the Community Development Department is the staff representation for the Planning Commission, Zoning Hearing Board, Building Code Appeals Board, which meets maybe once a year. That's on an as-needed basis. So quarterly, the projects that were before the Planning Commission, January, we had Ridge Farm 1A, which just finally made it through BOC. February, we had All About Tacos, which was at 3750 Hamilton Boulevard. They requested waivers for sidewalk. Those were not granted. We've still been in discussions with them, and they may be coming back to the Planning Commission or downsizing. So we're working with them to hopefully keep them interested in that property. It's the old Carmel restaurant. It would be great to have another tenant in there. At the March, we had 2 meetings in March. We had 4 items, so they held a special meeting. March 17th, we had St. Luke's West End Medical Center. They're looking to do a new building. That was taken under advisement. We had the Springfield subdivision sketch plan, which is the large tract of land across from the high school. We had a productive conversation with them, bounced some ideas off, heard concerns of the Planning Commission as well as public. It was a well-attended meeting. It was productive. We're kind of moving forward through that process. The 29th meeting, we had 1670 Church Road, which is right across from PJ's, kind of not directly across, but it's over there. That was a sketch plan. We were discussing some issues that they had, some concerns. We talked to them about some conceptual ideas. They will be coming back to the Planning Commission with revised plans. And then we also had Ridge Farm 1A, which was where they made the recommendation for approval. Zoning Hearing Board, a lot of extensions. So, a lot of projects were getting extended. The March meeting, they had Cedar Quirky LLC, which was 40 South Cedar Crest Boulevard. It was a change of use. So it was basically the same use. So it was office to office, just a different tenant. There was Kathia Brothers, which is 2232 Walbert. I believe it's the old printing building or bindery. They were proposing a retail use, and they got continued to April. That'll be on at the April meeting. They also appointed Thomas Dinkellocker as their attorney. The other thing community development does is we handle permits. So I'll just kind of review where we're at with permits. For the first quarter, we had for January, we had 40 permits. I'll go through ads renovations. So we had 40 in January, 25 in February, and 71 in March. So we typically see increases in renovations, alterations in spring and through the summer. So we're starting to pick up on that side of the house. And then we also take in applications for residential new projects, new buildings. We had 9 in January, 6 in February, 8 in March. Those go through the process, issuing construction inspections, which can take months. So the end product of that is certificates of occupancy. So we've had 22 total new homes in that first quarter. Non-residential, we've seen kind of a similar thing, starting to pick up a little bit more as far as ads alts. We've had 1 application for a new non-res, and that was Long's Water. So they're starting to do construction. They're doing demolition first, and at our pre-construction meeting with them. Enforcement program, I'm happy to note that Tom Harper, our code enforcement officer, is back, bouncing around the office. So it's great to have him back. Keycodes was great, but there's nothing beats having an in-house code enforcement officer. A lot of the complaints can get handled right away. With Keycodes, we had to go through the RFI process, submit a formal RFI, and go through that. But having somebody on staff is a terrific way to handle this. So I'm happy to have him back into it. And that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I do. Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it this evening, but one of the first things that you mentioned, Dave, is sidewalks. I'm generally in favor of not providing waivers or deferrals for sidewalks, but I have a particular, a different viewpoint, circumstantial, I'm going to admit, on the possible compelling of those who have been granted deferrals and the township counting them in or pulling deferrals. I just set that placeholder because I would like to understand as we put out these notices that township is going to require you to do that. I just have a sensitivity to it. That's all. I fully support going forward. I have a little concern about telling residents in particular, you're going to be putting sidewalks in now. So when those topics come up, you'll see me asking some questions.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've talked about is we called in sidewalks in the Tillman Square area before COVID. So we're kind of ramping that back up. Lanta put in the request that kind of prompted that because they want to change their bus stop location and put in the shelter. And one of their requirements for shelters is sidewalks. So we had a deferral on that location, called in the deferral. COVID happened. Everybody forgot. So we're starting that back up. One thing that will be coming to the BOC in May is there was a project that was approved on Crackersport Road, and sidewalks were not waived or deferred. They had to be put in, and it was recommended that we call in adjacent sidewalks. So typically, when we don't call in sidewalks willy-nilly. If there's an adjacent sidewalk and it makes a connection, that's when we see it as an opportune time to call those in. We did have to do some background research to find the old resolutions and the plans and things like that. And then we also, Tony and I were working with figuring out permitting, question of whether they count the whole project, like all the sidewalks along one road, or if they're individual projects, has a big impact on what permits are required. So that's really one of the big things that we were looking at. But I anticipate coming before the board to ask all those sidewalks in. And we can talk about it in detail then.
That answer your question?
It does, yes, thank you.
Very good,
So
thank you.
just for me to be certain, before you issued these letters to particular property owners, you come to the board and ask for a vote?
I think that is the prudent way to handle it. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, one of my concerns, I'll just say it up front, especially with homeowners, the particular home may have turned over any number of times, 2, 3, 4 owners. So the fourth owner, it could be caught blindsided, perhaps doesn't have the necessary immediate funds to follow through on that. So
yeah, and there, one of the other things we've been looking at in conjunction with this is an ordinance that details the process that we have to follow and timeframes, and if it comes to a certain point, the township can put it in lien properties and all of that. But that's another can of worms.
Something I'll just mention, given your comments and concerns, Commissioner Osborne, not all to downplay your concern, I understand that, but separate from the calling in the deferrals that Dave Manhart's referring to, there is a provision in the first class township code that would authorize a township to cause a property owner to put sidewalks in, even if the development never had an issue of sidewalks or deferrals because it was ancient. It's a separate process independent from the deferral calling.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Zader. And actually, I'm aware of that, and it's actually one layer deeper. You don't even have to ask permission if that's the, the will of the township. I believe I know which location you're talking about, Dave Manhart, with the Lanta, and I can tell you that there is some discussion among those property owners in that area about that particular call-in. So, but I'm sure you'll hear about it when the time comes.
They've heard about it.
Oh, okay.
We're kind of waiting on a couple things to resolve themselves before we push any more on that. But
Dave, I just have one question. Since spring is here, noise ordinance, we're going to start hearing complaints. Has there been any consideration to add something to our township website? I know we have a lot for winter with snow and different things. Is there something we can put preemptive information?
so we did put something in the newsletter that talked about spring from the code enforcement. We can certainly put something on the website. We'll take similar language and put that in. Noise ordinance, absolutely, because people are going to start being outside more.
Thank you. And is there any update, last question, I promise, I think it's you, for the switch of the township to Peak software instead of board docs that we're using?
So we've been doing the agendas in both for the past, I believe, 2 meetings, just to kind of get the bugs worked out before we launch it live. So we're getting close on that respect. The next step is to train staff, because the way Peak works is staff will actually help build the agenda to relieve some of the pressure off of Tracy, so that we're providing all the information. And once an agenda item gets ready, then it can get pushed to the live agenda. So that's one facet of it. Once we get that figured out and staff's trained on that, there's a new interface for BOC that will have training on that as well. So
Excellent.
there's
More to
a
come.
lot of moving pieces and more technology. Woohoo!
Of course. What could go wrong?
Right.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, Finance Department.
Good evening,
Greetings,
Commissioners. Thank you. As it's early in the year, there's not a lot that's exciting from a numbers standpoint, mostly because our main revenue comes in April or later. But I will just say that we have received so far in the year as of February $1.4 million in revenue. Compared to the last 2 years, 2021, we received a little over 1 million, and in 2020, it was 1.1. So we're tracking a little higher in terms of the revenue at 1.4. We have expenses at 1.7. This is general fund, by the way. Expenses at 1.7, and early on in the year, it's not atypical to see this kind of activity in the general fund as well. The refuse fund has revenues of $718,000 with expenses of $448, which is good from what we're seeing. The water fund and the sewer funds, however, have small deficits, although the main reason both of these funds have deficits is due to the pressure that was put upon us by the inflation and the purchase of vehicles that we decided to go through with at the beginning of the year so as to beat price increases later on. So the water fund currently has a $120,000 deficit, and the sewer fund has a $239,000. I expect those to even out throughout the rest of the year. The most exciting things we have going on in the finance department are an update of our budget process that we are about 95% of the way through. I'm working on some of the buy-in with other department heads, as well as just kind of ironing out the rest of how the process will work. And we're hoping to get that started in May. So that's going to be that's going to be here very soon. So I'm excited about that, as I expect our budget process this year to be smooth. We have some policies and procedures that we are working on. At the April 20th meeting, the Finance Committee will come to the board with a recommendation to pass by motion a fund balance policy. This was something I presented to the previous board, I believe back in October, about just an educational session on the fund balance policy. So we're hoping to bring that to the board on the 20th. I also have other policies that are currently drafted that are awaiting comment, which include an accounting, auditing, and financial reporting policy, a budget policy, a capitalization policy, and the updated purchasing policy. And then there are future policies that we have in the works, which include a debt policy, an investment policy, a revenue policy, which will address the use of one-time revenues that are unexpected, as well as a fleet replacement policy and an internal controls policy. So we're just kind of bolstering our defenses here in the finance department with those things. The last big exciting thing is that we are finalizing the selection process for a township credit card program. And this is something we could not proceed with due to the audited financial statements not being done with prior years. But we are hoping that this program will streamline our efficiency of purchases. It will also open the door to rebates or cashback, which will allow us to receive a portion of the funds back, depending on how much we spend. It will also help us expedite timing of payments, which is important given the nature of the Postal Service and how many days it takes to mail checks. So our vendors are going to be much happier with this. And it also helps us with our internal controls by eliminating the need for expenses to be employee reimbursements. So when we as a township are able to use a credit card to, say, pay for a conference, or whatnot, we don't have to go through the payroll process. We can expend that through the use of a card. So I've done a lot of research on this. I've met with various different banks and have an analysis prepared, and I'm hoping that within a week I can select the best option, and we're going to move forward in the most responsible, expeditious way possible. So I'm hoping to move on this. And then I would also just like to thank Mike and Dave on the Finance Committee. We've had some productive meetings so far during the year, and those have been helpful for our team. So that is what we have in the Finance Department.
Thank you, Scott. I have a question on the credit card. Thank you for doing the research on that. I guess my question would be, I know that you mentioned where you have a purchasing policy in a draft form. Would the credit card policy need to be part of that purchasing policy so they would go hand in hand?
Yeah, so one of the reasons the purchasing policy is in the draft form is because both the credit card payment program and what I hope to accomplish later in the year with ACH payments, as well as a vendor self-service portal. So there's three things. I would like to get those pieces in place first before buttoning up the purchasing policy so that we don't have to redo it multiple times.
Very good. And one last question. I received my refuse and my sewer bill, and they have zero balances. And I know I've asked this question at budget workshops over the last couple of years. It's a common citizen complaint that they feel it's wasteful, that the township is sending out zero balance. I understand the reasons in the past for it, but is there a path forward and a plan to eliminate that billing, since it's really not a bill, and or also send online bills to people to cut down on postage? It's a way to be also environmentally responsible with less paper.
One thing I have on my list for a discussion agenda item on the next Finance Committee meeting is that we're reevaluating, I should say, our credit card utility billing payments. At that time, we're also going to look at one of the ideas that came up out of the last Finance Committee meeting was how certain municipalities kind of linked their refuse bill with their real estate property tax because it's a constant bill. So we're going to look into that. But we're also reevaluating our credit card utility billing payments. Right now, we utilize a vendor that's outside of our ERP. And so we're hoping to further efficiencies for our residents and to lower the fees that residents pay to be able to utilize the software that we have, and they have a credit card program as well. It's just going to take some time to tweak some of those things. Unfortunately, a lot of the processes that I'm seeing here have been kind of put together piecemeal over time. Rather than utilize the capabilities of the ERP fully, it's been a piece here, a piece there. So we're hoping that we can get after this.
Very good. I appreciate your answers there, Scott. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Thank you, Commissioner
Councilman.
Kelly. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Kennedy and Commissioner Walk in his absence for your participation in Finance Committee. It really is nice to hear that there's a benefit, that the staff is getting from your serving on that. So that's good. I just want to confirm my understanding. So the water and sewer, both of those accounts have deficits. Is that correct?
Correct. So it's a deficit in revenue over expense.
Right. So I just want to confirm my understanding. It would be, in my experience, those deficit accounts which need to continue operating would draw the necessary funds from the general fund. No. So how with a deficit account are you spending money?
So for one
in those areas.
Yeah, one example, the sewer fund. So we brought in $525,000 January and February in the sewer fund. We expended $765,000. Of that $765,000, about $450,000 was for a new truck in the sewer department. If we had waited until June to purchase the truck, that truck would have been not only more expensive, but we would see the expense then. So that those deficits that I see this early on in the year, I'm not as concerned about. But it is important for you all just to be reminded of, and for the public who's listening, that the water and sewer funds are enterprise funds, which means that they need to be supported only through revenue that they bring in, which is the fee for the water and the fee for the sewer. So if in the ordinary course of events, if deficits are to continue in those funds, the only way to remove and reduce those deficits are to increase fees.
So that's a good point, enterprise funds. So you're getting the money to spend through the unappropriated reserves within that fund.
Currently correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So going back to, let's say, outside the enterprise funds, if you're running a deficit, which is, I understand is normal at the beginning of the year, they would be transferred from the general fund?
Not in those funds. If it were in the general fund, it would come from the general fund itself, yes.
Okay. I guess what I'm really trying to get at, are there journal entries for any amount of money that I'll call a loan or temporarily transferred out of the general fund to pay for operating expenses? Is that the way this works?
There would not be for operating expenses, no.
Okay. I'm trying to understand how money in the past was taken from a certain account, which we've heard, and we don't know where that money went.
Is there a specific account you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Well, that comes from the cash account in the sewer fund itself. So like the deficit that is currently in the water fund, the 121,000 and the 239 in the sewer fund, we have currently in excess of $4 million in each of those accounts.
In the reserve?
In those reserves, correct.
Yes, I understand
correct,
that. Okay. Well, I'll pause my questioning because I'm not getting across what I'm trying to say. But there have been discussions in the past where money was pulled, let's say from the fire departments in particular. You asked, where did that money come from and what's the accounting on how that money got back or would get back in the future? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Gotcha.
And the way that would happen is through journal entries. Am I right?
It could happen through journal entries. That is correct.
Okay. So if that same thing happened today, we would have a journal entry today, and we wouldn't be left with the questions that we've had in the past.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? From the public? Okay, moving on to item D, fire departments. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Okay, the first quarter update for the fire departments. Responses for the fire departments in the first quarter of 2022. Woodlawn responded to 178 calls. Greenwalls had 149 responses. Citroni had 181 responses. And Tri-Clover had 32 responses in the township. And now just an update on projects that we've had in the first quarter. We took possession in the first quarter this year of a new Spartan engine 3212 for the Woodlawn Fire Department. Again, that came from Spartan through Campbell. The new fire marshal's vehicle has been ordered, was approved and was ordered. We're awaiting the cap installation on it to come in and get installed, and hopefully that'll be up and running. The vehicle itself is at the dealership. It's delivered. We're waiting on the cap to be delivered, and hopefully we'll see that up and running shortly for the fire marshal to get him in a new vehicle. Station repairs that were approved for Woodlawn with their damage to the building from salt and from degradation has been completed. Belfort did a fantastic job with it. Everybody's happy. And they had sealant put on them and stuff to prevent further damage in the future. And of course, keeping snow and ice away from the building is going to be a continued process. Also, we had the approval to go for new air packs for Woodlawn through the ARPA money, the ARPA money. At this point, they were approved for the 14 air packs, 14 face pieces, and 25 cylinders. Those are currently on order. That order has been placed. We are waiting arrival on those air packs. Greenwalls Fire Department had a vehicle totaled, which was a deputy chief's vehicle. Between insurance and reimbursements that were approved by the board, that project is completed, and they have now gotten their chief's vehicle back in service. So their deputy chief's vehicle is back in service and in use. And also Greenwalls has gotten the approval for the purchase of 16 Harris portable radios. To date, those radios were ordered and are due in June. And that's highlights for first quarter.
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Chris. Are there any questions from any board members? Sure.
Thanks, President Kelly. I have a quick question for you, Chris.
Sure.
Belfour, I'm happy to hear that everything got taken care of at Woodlawn. I think it was you, Commissioner Osborne, that had spoken about maybe a way of deflecting water away from the bottom of, was that you?
It was.
No, it was. Has that
That's a good
been
memory.
done? Yeah. Do you know if that has been done? Just to deflect water away from the
building.
Yeah.
And if I recall, they don't have anything for deflecting water away, but the ground is sloped away from the building. So the ground is not sloped into the building. Ground is sloped away from the building. One of the problems we had is just snow and shoveling or plowing. We would basically try and clear out parking places, and sometimes you plow towards the building. We're making more of a conscious effort that we're not going to shovel towards the building. So they're doing more of a snow blow and a cutout against the building so that doesn't accumulate. But as far as the water goes, there's slope away from the building. And matter of fact, I think Randy went out with me and we looked at it also, and there was a slope.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, where the wall was rotting away on the side of the building there, I have met with Barry Search. We're going to go down there with our crack seal machine and actually seal underneath the siding to make sure no water can penetrate back in there again.
Just have a comment. Diane and I sit on the side of the fire subcommittee, and Chris had just mentioned what our calls were for the 4 stations. And I can't speak for Tri-Clover, Chris, but obviously, are you including the number of mutual aid calls we're getting on those? I know we get.
Yes. What I did is I took out all their responses for the first quarter. So I went into their report system And this is anything they were dispatched to, whether it was in the township or mutual aid.
Yeah, I think it should be pointed out.
On
that we're doing
Triclover.
A lot of that. We're
Pardon?
doing a lot more of that. I think it should be pointed out that we are doing a lot more mutual
Yes,
aid.
we are absolutely doing
than
a
before. All of our stations are being called out for mutual aid because they are responsive. I think the fire in Whitehall, South Whitehall Township, Greenwalls was first on scene. And I said Whitehall, not South Whitehall. So
yes, yeah, that's, I mean, it was literally, it was just over the border in the Whitehall, but yes, we went on the second alarm to that location, and one of our engines was one of the first ones on the scene. We were actually the first on the one side of the building, and the city of Allentown got sent, and they were first on the other side of the building. So yeah, we are absolutely taking, and that is in these numbers. As far as Triclover's numbers go, the only numbers I got you for Triclover is what they ran in the township, since they're North Whitehall company. But everything else includes
thank you.
our
I just want
mutual
to point it out that to those listening that it is a higher number than usual that we do mutual aid. And it goes to show what our fire department's all about in South Whitehall Township. They do a fantastic job, not just here, but in surrounding districts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the public? Thank you for your report, Chris. Moving over to item F, Public Works, Water and Sewer. I skip. I am so sorry.
That's
No,
all right.
we will not skip you, Mike. I am so sorry.
Yes.
Let's start that again. Item E, Parks and Rec, Mike Kukits.
Yes. Good evening again. So I just have some statistics and project updates and a few other things to run by you. We have more young folks signed up for our fishing derby at this point in the time than we did last year. We're up to 65 who have pre-registered. I expect to have a good turnout there. That is on April the 16th, if you're able to come down to Cover Bridge Park. The following Saturday, our Earth Day cleanup. Been soliciting for groups that'll come out and help beyond just residents and family members. So we do have about a dozen residents that have signed up for this. In addition to that, Embassy Bank, Giant, Amazon, Bartlett Tree Services, and the Conservation District will all be coming out, as well as State Rep Mike Schlossberg, to lend a hand with our Earth Day cleanup in Cover Bridge Park and Fernwood Park on the 23rd. With the two additional I got today, we are up to 20 summer camp counselors lined up for interviews. So we're getting to where we need to be. We have 325 kids currently enrolled in our summer camp this year. Our soccer program is completely filled at 120 youth registered, and we're looking at ways to open that up to even more kids that are on a waiting list. Other programs are filling up fast, and I expect that with the newsletter just hitting mailboxes within the next week or so, that they will fill our new little athletics and Zumba in the park, and those sorts of programs are filling up pretty fast as well. Year-to-date program revenue, we have $106,941, and we have an additional, I didn't do the dollar math, but we have an additional pavilion rentals of 56 to date. Last year we had 134 throughout the year. With it just turning April, I expect that number to be somewhat similar by the end of the year. Project updates. I won't touch too much on South Whitehall Chase and Jacoby Park basketball courts because we've discussed them earlier this evening. The Vistas Park, we're currently working with Bidcock to take the Penn Praxis plan that was put together through public input to come up with a final engineered plan. That'll make its way through the Park and Rec Board here shortly. And we're hopeful that that will be constructed in 2023. Kohler Ridge, we are working to finalize the last few steps of that process as well, and to really look at the budget numbers and get them to a number that we will be comfortable with. And we plan to have that in front of the board possibly as early as May of this year. The Milhouse roof and restroom staining. The Milhouse roof has been completed. The restroom staining is in process. The inside of it's been done. The outside was just power washed this week. And if the weather stays like it is, then the outside should be completed this weekend. We submitted the DCNR grant for the Cover Bridge Park Master Plan Phase C. We're working on some wayfinding signage in Cover Bridge Park. And our prop plan, I want to thank Commissioners Kelly and Hodges for sitting on that, as well as Mark Ackerman from our Park and Rec Board who joined us. We started meeting in February for the Park Rec Open Space and Trails Master Plan. I think this is going to be a great plan and a great guiding document for the township for the next 10 years. And looking forward to getting that plan done this year. We should have it wrapped up by the end of the year. 3 important dates you'll hear from me multiple times will be the public meeting dates, and those are April 28th, June 23rd, and September 29th at 7:00 p.m. There'll be hybrid meetings, so you can attend virtually or in person. A few other things I'll just touch on is, as I mentioned, the newsletter was just completed. It should be in mailboxes this week, if not by next week at the very latest. Our rec desk is lined up through, I believe, July at this point with all of our programming and social media and website, all that's up to date. Also working on putting together some sponsorship materials on top of just our Adopt a Tree program, but a memorial tree program and just general program sponsorship. And last but not least, I'll just update the board on, I attended a PRPS, or Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society conference last week, and we had nominated St. Luke's University Health Network for all they do, not only for this township, but for the residents all over Eastern Pennsylvania. And they did win the Community Champion Award, which is a statewide award based on our recommendation for everything they do with Tail on the Trail and Walk with a Doc and all the other fitness and health and wellness initiatives that they run. So I wanted to let you know about that as well.
Thank you for that report, Mike. Appreciate that. I noticed in the utility bill that I got that there was a little reminder about the prop plan public meetings, and I appreciate you putting those that way. It's a great way to get it out to the public. Thank you. I just had a question on the vistas. If I understood you correctly, you said that we were using the Penn Praxis plan.
Correct. So we are working with Pidcock Engineering, who is taking the Penn Praxis plan, the plan that was put together back before I started working for the township here, that had plethora of public input to create this plan. We're taking that plan and now looking at what's feasible. Has anything changed? What can we put into the engineered plan that's going to benefit everyone, that the Board of Commissioners will want to see, that staff will want to see, and that will hit on all the marks that the public would like to see as well, based on the feedback that we received in, I believe it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
And was there also a survey done of the nearby residents?
There was for the Vistas plan. Yep, it went through a master plan process.
In that
similar
same time period, around 2018, or was it more recent?
Yeah, that's actually what was used to develop the conceptual plan, which I think is what Mike's referring to.
Okay.
From Penn Praxis.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Mike, we talked last month about a survey going out to the township residents. And I know you said not right away. I mean, I wasn't expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
When are we looking to do that again? Sometime in late April, May, was it?
Can you refresh my memory on the exact?
It's finding out what township residents want from a park and rec standpoint.
Correct. Yes.
We have parks all over the place, but trying to address not just the kids for the soccer or the youth, but also the seniors. Commissioner Kelly mentioned earlier pickleball. I mean,
correct. Yes.
Some of us are getting older.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we've.
So, what are we going to do for us?
Yep, we had that discussion at the last prop plan steering committee meeting as well about getting different surveys out.
Is there a time factor when we're going to look to do that, or?
I'll say it'll happen throughout 2022. I don't have an exact time frame as far as when the surveys will get put out and where exactly they'll get put out. But we are working with Barry Isett to get as much feedback as we can for what does this community want in parks, recreation, open space, and trails.
I'm confused. Why are we working with them for that? Help fill me in. Why do we work with Barry Isaacs on what the township wants? What the residents want?
They are the hired consultant for our park, recreation, open space, and trails plan, which is going to be a 10-year guiding document on what our residents want regarding parks, recreation.
I'm not going to be here. I may not be around in 10 years. I want to get something done sooner than that if we can. That's what I'm asking. So you know what? I'll attend a park and rec meeting and bring it up.
Sure.
I got my refuse bill, which I don't know any money, and I did see the card that you put in.
Yeah.
I mean, something like that even. Throwing it in the bills that we send out to people that don't even owe money.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe something like of that nature. So, all right.
Sure. Yeah, I think the
let's
best
take that
way,
offline and pursue that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't need Barry Isaac to tell me what the township needs. We need the residents to tell.
Well, Barry Isett wouldn't be telling us. Barry Isett is going to help us collect the data
Okay.
from all the residents and compile it into what is the prop plan. I mean, that is the purpose of the prop plan, is to create a plan based on resident feedback, setting a guide for the department for the next 10 years. And again, we can give me a call. We can talk offline on it, but it's,
Yeah,
I don't want to confuse residents by sending them one survey right now, and then in 2 months they get another survey from Barry Isit asking similar questions about recreation, and they say they already filled it out, and then we miss that in the
that's
master
what I'm asking.
plan.
Though.
So
You're saying they are going to do it in 2 months.
within the next few months, and,
Oh, okay,
and
then
during the April meeting here, the
Got it.
public
That's my
meeting.
question. All right.
Yeah,
So they'll be doing that, asking residents what they want.
absolutely,
Okay.
110%.
Are there any other comments or questions? Anything from the public? Okay, moving on now to Public Works, Water and Sewer. Herb.
All right, on the street side, the milling will be starting on April 18th. I have a meeting set up with Rotomill to come in on the 12th. We're going to lay it completely out, where they're going to start, where we're going to end. We're expecting that to take us about 8 to 10 days to get done. The paving will start on the 19th. That way we'll just be 1 day behind them, leveling everything. And then we'll put the final wearing down once we have everything leveled. We'll just turn around right where we stopped with the leveling and finish back where we started then. The reason we're going to have the meeting is so we can get the letters together to let all the residents know, coordinate it with the school district for the kids pickup for the bus stops and that. To date, in the street side, we have repaired 29 inlets so far this year already. At Farm Drive, we dug out the front bank. We gained around 4,000 to 5,000 gallons of capacity in there also, so that will help with the flooding that was happening to residents behind it. We put the spillway back in there also, so that way if it would overflow, it'll overflow onto the street to the catch basins instead of towards the residents. The bridge inspections were done by Keystone Engineering and by the state. We have completed all the recommendations except for the guide rail repair, which I don't do till it becomes a priority, just because it seems like it's always changing. So you could throw $15,000 at it this year, they're going to inspect it next year, tell you to spend another $15,000 on it. So till it gets to a priority 2, we just let it ride, and then this way we don't keep just throwing thousands of dollars at these things. The tree trimming has been completed on the list for this year over in the Dillon area. We have completed that. On April 18th, the gentleman Kevin from the state will be coming in. We are updating our liquid fuels map so we can get the appropriate funds every year through the liquid fuels. In the Parks Department, we have started off on the fences already. Farm Drive has gotten a whole new split rail fence. On Lincoln Drive, that one, Lincoln Drive North Pond, has been completed with the new split rail fence. We are currently working on mall chunks right now, and then we are going to go to 15th Street and do some regrading in that pond also. The batting cage is done on our side. The youth groups are going to be moving forward with that at Cover Bridge Park now. The picnic tables have been put out to all the pavilions. The ball fields are almost all ready to go for this upcoming season. We're just waiting for some infield mix for one more field. There is a shortage, imagine that. And we're getting ready for the fishing derby and Earth Day. Make sure we have all the supplies ready and enough volunteers and public works employees for that day. At the garage, we have our routine maintenance of the fleet. They have removed all the snow equipment and serviced it and put it away for the year. They have set up the trucks with the blacktop plates on the back and that, so we are ready to go for that. And they have serviced all the mowers, went over them with a fine tooth comb to make sure we are ready to go for the grass cutting season. In the MS4 side, we are working on our outfall inspections, which we are required to do once every permit cycle. We're working on setting up a camera inspection of the storm water piping. We're looking at how we can get this up and running. And I believe that will help with some of our flooding. I believe a lot of our pipes are full of debris, so we don't take as much water as we could. We're looking at our PRP plan to see how we can get this accomplished to remove 10% of our sediment. And we're working on our outreach program, freshening it up a little bit so it's not the same speech as every year. So we will have that at the fishing derby, and we will be at Earth Day with our stand also. On the water side, we are setting up all the lead and copper testing sites. Bridgeview Terrace Phase 1 is almost complete. All the piping and services are in the ground now. They are coming back to start the blacktop work and the stabilization of the yards to get the grass going for the residents. Bridgeview Terrace Phase 2, the bid spec is almost complete. We will probably be bringing that to the board on the next meeting for the approval to go out to bid. We are working with 120 Water still on our full inventory list for DEP, which we have to have in by 2024. We're working on our quotes for the sewer stacks on our chamber boxes so we don't have any SSOs, which is a sewer spill. So, and then on the sewer side, we're working with USG on the upcoming cast in place repairs. We're currently TVing area MS53, and we're cleaning and jetting all the problem areas in the township that are prone to grease and stuff like that. That's all I have.
That's it. Thank you, Herb. I appreciate the update. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Nothing. Any from the public? Okay, moving on to item G, the police department. Chief Dorney.
Good evening, commissioners. I'll make it very quick. The quarterly report for the first quarter of 2022, police department handled 3,187 calls for service. We had 237 reported crimes, made 98 arrests. That'll be the stats for the quarter. A couple of items of interest on April 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. We are hosting a fraud seminar here in this room for our residents to come out and learn about some of the frauds that are out there and ways to safeguard themselves from becoming a victim. That goes from 6 to 8 p.m. Our detective bureau will be hosting that as well as Sergeant Grozier and Lieutenant Brown. On May 14th in Covered Bridge Park, we're going to host a cornhole tournament to raise some funds for Wings to Peace, which is the Lehigh Valley Hospital Infusion Center for juveniles, and also raise some, hopefully some food donations for Parkland Cares. This year we are holding our Youth Police Academy from June 20th to the 24th, and to say it's popular would be kind of a false statement, considering we are taking up to 40 kids this year, and we had 63 applications already within the first week that it was posted within the school district. So we're going to have a very successful and busy youth academy this year. As you may have seen, that we did in fact have our first meeting, and they also had a press conference in the city of Allentown in reference to the dirt bike and ATV task force. We had our first meeting on Monday in the city to talk about some strategies moving forward to collectively work together to prevent some of these folks that have been terrorizing neighborhoods. And we've been working with legislators to talk about some future legislation to have some real bite behind some of these folks that are terrorizing our neighborhood. So when we catch them, what we can do. So we're working with our state reps and state senators to work on getting some solutions to make sure that does not hit all of our neighborhoods as badly as it has the city of Allentown. Moving forward, hopefully at the next meeting, you'll see prior to that, the memorandum of understanding with the Parkland School District for our SROs. We're just updating it. Hasn't been updated for a while. We're in the final phases of hopefully getting a new hire on board for the July Police Academy class. He's in the very final stages of the background process. Everything's just about done other than the physical to go to the academy. And also on April 30th, the Lehigh County Consortium test will be held for the 13 departments in the Lehigh County area, minus the city of Allentown. They're taking applications until April 22nd at noon. So I encourage anybody who would like to join the ranks of any of the municipal police departments in Lehigh County to please go to LehighCountyPoliceTest.com, fill out an application, and hopefully join the ranks for the future. That is all I have.
Thank you, Chief Dorney. there any questions or comments from the board? I had one question, Chief. The fraud seminar, is that going to also be available online virtually?
We were not planning on that, no. We can try to work on the technology. But yeah, we have approximately 40 people. So far, everybody that showed interest is coming. So we haven't got any inquiries as to whether or not we will do it online.
Well, the reason I asked was if people weren't able to attend or weren't aware of it, it would be, I think, maybe something to consider to record it and post it on our website. It's great information. I'm
Yeah,
sure that
we
you're
can
going to
certainly do
review. Just a thought, if it's not
I'll work
possible.
with Dave and we'll make it happen.
And my other question was on the Youth Academy. You've gotten obviously more applications than we have positions available.
Yes.
Will there be priority given to our South Whitehall residents?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some folks that are from Upper Mac, North Whitehall, that are not in the first choice. So we told them that flat out that our South Whitehall Township residents get first crack.
Okay,
So
excellent. Thank you. And one last question. I'm sorry, I just remembered. You mentioned the partnership that you signed up with Allentown and Whitehall for the ATVs and the dirt bikes. Is that something that South Whitehall has seen creeping into our township, or?
on occasion, you'll see one or two kind of come down Walbert Avenue. They typically skirt the city. They'll come out Roth Avenue, hit Walbert Avenue, hit Cedar Crest, hit Hamilton, and go back in. So we're working at different technologies. When I was in the city, we actually hired our vice guys on overtime to go out and plain clothes, unmarked cars, follow them till they stopped, and we're able to apprehend some of them. We've actually gone to the extent of using the Lehigh County drone team to follow them to try to find out where they store them. So one of the requests, I guess, for me now to our public is if you have any information or details, please reach out to us. Let us know. Any information can lead to kind of keeping our neighborhood safe and keeping this from truly coming into the township. I mean, I could some very, very brief stats from the city of Allentown in the meeting the other day. Just in the first couple months of the year, they've already had 163 dirt bike complaints. And when I say that from experience, that is anywhere between 5 to 10 to 30 to 50 motorcycles, off-road motorcycles that are not legal for street, riding up and down major thoroughfares in the city of Allentown, riding sidewalks, and essentially terrorizing neighborhoods. So we're trying to work with some of the organizers of some of the bike crews in the city, but they are essentially out there intentionally terrorizing our neighborhood and our communities. So we will treat it like a criminal offense, which it is, but we're also open to listen to any ideas from them and what needs they would hope to get from us as communities, mostly in the city of Allentown. But we are working collectively to come up with different strategies to try to put an end to it as quickly as possible. So quite frankly, nobody gets hurt. I mean, I've seen some of them get hurt in the past, get hit by cars, things like that. They've complete disregard for any of the other motoring public, any pedestrians, things like that. And quite frankly, in my opinion, they're there to terrorize neighborhoods. So, and we won't tolerate it in South Whitehall Township.
Well, thank you for that update. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
If there are no other comments, we will move on to item H, report from our township engineer. Tony, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Dave talked about some of the plans that went through the planning commission. Coming up in April, we foresee the Dunkin' Donuts coming back in. That was the only submission. Also, we have skilled nursing. The Cedarbrook home is under construction along with Shabbat. 4741 Chapman's Road warehouse is kind of wrapping up construction. That's what we see. It's unfortunate right now. Supply issues are tough. So a lot of these sites that will be done and wrapped up by now are still kind of hanging out there. It's an unfortunate situation for everyone. But that's what we see under construction now. And then coming soon will be Long's Water, Craftsville Elementary, and Luther Crest. We see coming up for construction wise.
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Tony.
Thank
Any questions for our engineer? Any from the public? Very good. Well, that concludes our department reports. I want to thank you all for preparing your information. It helps us as commissioners to understand what's going on in the township and to understand the services that you provide. So we appreciate you all. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, direction and discussion. Is there anyone, any member of the board who has any items to discuss this evening?
Commissioner Kelly, I do. Thank you. One of the commissioners had requested that a motion be put on this particular agenda, and I see that it's not on there. So I'd like to discuss the process of how a commissioner, upon request, can get an item such as a motion on the agenda. This request was done a week ago, so it wasn't really like at the last minute, so.
Sure. We can open the floor for that. I think earlier in January, I had discussed this a little bit with a couple of other municipalities just for process information for myself, and sent an email to the board with some thoughts that it would make sense to bring an item up during direction discussion as you are now, so that the board has an opportunity to discuss the topic. And from there, we could decide as a board whether it goes to staff for work, could potentially be a workshop suggested, second Wednesday of each month we have a workshop, or third would be to be added as a motion on the following month's or week's agenda. So that way we all have an opportunity in real time to have a discussion.
Yeah, I think I'd like to make the distinction between something that I had done previously, which was the committee structure, which was really an idea that needed feedback. So I could see where that falls really reasonably under direction and discussion. However, an exact motion that a commissioner would like to have on the agenda, I put in a different category because the motion itself would prompt a discussion and no development of that motion is necessary. So I'd like to separate the two because I understand one and support that. But I'm really concerned about the commissioner interested, or a couple commissioners, it doesn't matter, asking for a motion to be put on and then it not being put on. Do you see what I'm talking about, the distinction between the two and maybe a different outcome?
I do, but I also see that if one of the commissioners has a thought or a plan for a motion, would there be a reason why we wouldn't just discuss that under direction discussion as opposed to just emailing the township manager and asking it to be included without any board knowledge or discussion?
Well, I think the practical difference is if a motion in this case is not allowed to be on the agenda, then the public has no opportunity to know that this would be discussed. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of getting it on the agenda so everyone knows if they're interested in the topic, tune in and weigh in. It's different than something that needs to be massaged or input in order for a final product to be developed. But I definitely see the difference between the two. A motion itself can cause the discussion. It doesn't need development. It's just a motion.
Yeah, I can see that point as well. I'll open up to other commissioners as well. But as far as the public knowing, if we did discuss and it's put on the following agenda, it would be publicly advertised and the public would at that point be part of the discussion of the actual motion. But I can see both sides of that.
Yeah,
So
I don't see, first of all, I don't see the harm in putting it on the agenda, and I don't understand why the board would prevent a motion from going up on the table. I guess that's really what I'm getting at. What decision does the board need to make in order to allow a commissioner to put a motion on the agenda?
Well, specifically, the motion that you're referencing was already a topic that is scheduled for a workshop next week. So I know that that was part of the discussion between the board members of whether or not it would make sense to put a motion on tonight for something that we have already decided as a board in a public meeting to discuss next week in a workshop. So it seemed the appropriate time would be during this workshop to discuss a very closely related topic to what we were planning our workshop for.
Yeah, so I
Whose
understand. So we
decision
step
was
back from
that?
that particular
Who made that
topic,
decision?
but I'm trying to generalize. Going forward, we can't make up what we haven't done. But going forward, I'd like to talk about assuring the ability of a certain commissioner, any commissioner, to suggest something be put on the agenda for discussion.
I don't want to monopolize the discussion.
My
so-
question is, I think you just brought it up, Diane. I don't know, because you didn't say, Brad, what was the motion? If it's the motion on that we're going to have a discussion on next week in the workshop for several hours, specifically on that topic, then I would think that it shouldn't be put on as a motion. It should be brought to the workshop. If that's the motion you're referring to, that's not on the agenda. I don't know which one you're referring to because you didn't say.
I didn't, so I'd like to generalize.
That is it.
Yeah.
If that is it, and if we know a workshop's coming up, I think it should not be put on as a motion. It should be discussed in workshop, then put on. That's specifically to what you're saying. On a general basis, we are holding workshops virtually every month now. So if a commissioner knew he wants to put something on as a motion, why not at least throw it into the workshop area for some discussion? It's a public meeting, and then bring it back here, put it on. So instead of sitting here, reading a motion and having a long drawn out discussion on something, that may or may not get moved forward, I just don't see the point in doing that. If we know we're having a workshop, and you can take 15 minutes in a workshop and say, hey, I've got another idea or item I'd like to bring up, and think about putting it forward as a motion. It's just my,
Yeah.
That's all.
Commissioner Hodges, did you have a comment?
Well, I tend to agree with Commissioner Kennedy. I feel like commissioners have that right to bring that initiative forward, but that's what we have workshops for, and that's what's open to the public for discussion, also open to the board for discussion. I think that's a fair way to go forward with public discussion, including the public. I think first discussing it at a workshop is the way to go. Now, you're saying generally, maybe you could give me some examples of what you mean, or, because what I'm thinking of, we already did have something set forward with a workshop.
Right.
So why bring it prior to that if we already have that time set for us to discuss it and to include the public?
Yeah, I'd like to move beyond. I don't understand why it's not on the agenda, but that's okay. Maybe we can pause the conversation, and then the next concrete example may be something that we can talk about again. I can't give you an example because I don't know what the example would be, but I'm just concerned with a single commissioner wanting to put a motion on the agenda and not being able to do that. If there's a logical reason why it's not, because of an impending meeting or whatever, I might understand that. But I don't understand why in general commissioners can't put an agenda item on. I don't understand. The first class township doesn't say they can't. There's no ordinance that I'm aware of, South Whitehall, that says that's not possible. I don't know of any bylaw that says you can't do that. So it's just a discussion that I wanted to bring to the table this evening. And maybe when the next example comes up, it would be a better, concrete example.
I appreciate you
make
bringing
sense?
that. Yes, I appreciate you bringing that forward.
Okay.
And I will just remind the board and the public, we do have agenda item 12, direction and discussion, which is an opportunity for us to bring whatever topic we have. And I think the one benefit of discussing it here before it goes to a motion is if it's something that we as a board might even want some background information on before it's brought to a formal motion, it's an opportunity for us to ask staff through Randy to do a little bit of research. So it's just not a motion that we're seeing for the first time with absolutely no background. So it's just something I'd like us all to consider. We always do have that opportunity to bring up discussion items. So I appreciate you bringing that forward for discussion this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or commissioner discussion items? Okay, moving forward to agenda item 13, courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on any non-agenda items? Dave, is no one in chat? Okay, excellent. Moving forward, we need to have a motion to authorize payment of invoices and disbursements for the month. May I hear a motion to move forward with this? A second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Brings us to no executive session scheduled for this evening. So I need a motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I want to stay here.
Thank you all. You may stay as long as you'd like, Commissioner Husband.